I went through the archives of your social media profile just to get an understanding of who you are, and it seems you are a woman of many powers.
Mm.
You have the ability to lead somatic breath work, but as well as like an embodiment coach, speaker, a leader in different ways. So,
Yeah.
uh, if you want to just kind of begin with when did you because I know you were a real estate agent at one point, and then you
Yeah.
kind of transitioned from that
Yeah.
industry and uh, that world. And
Profession.
I wasn't able to figure out when exactly you started
Mm.
your somatic breathwork um, journey. So if you want to dive into your first
Totally. I leave it a
session,
mystery on purpose. I leave the gap there.
yeah,
No. Um, Gosh, good question. So I did real estate here in Austin for 7 years.
okay,
I started at 17
wow,
and I was a full-time buyer's agent by about 21 to 20, well, I guess more like 20 to 25,
mm.
making great money
Mhm.
in the Austin market before it
Yeah,
became saturated. I've always been a pretty high achiever by my own standards.
mm.
Nobody's had to push me. I had very high expectations of myself at a young age. So started real estate really young, coupled with college. I ended up doing pharmaceutical sales on top of the real estate. So
Oh
for
wow,
about 3 years, I was just working my ass off,
mm.
quite frankly. At about 25, I looked up at my life and I was on my way to 7 figures in real estate and pharmaceutical careers. In my pharmaceutical career,
Mm.
I had a house, a boyfriend, a golden retriever puppy. I was killing it by
Mm.
America's standards.
Mhm.
And I mean, I got the accolades from that. People were like, "Your life looks amazing. How did you get that? I really want to do real estate. I really want to do what you're doing." Um, and that was all the external, right? But let's talk about the internal.
Mm.
The internal is not so pretty. The internal was chronically disconnected from who I was.
Mm.
Quite frankly, you hear it all the time. I was living in the mask of approval
Mm.
by everybody else's standards. You could say I was climbing the ladder, but it was up against the wrong wall. And when I woke up to that, it was an eating disorder, a really intense eating disorder that
Mm.
kind of brought me to my brink where I was like, what is going on? I don't even know who I am anymore. And I looked at myself in a mirror, like we all have that moment, right? And I just looked at myself and I was like, who are you? Who are you and who are
Mm.
you living for? And what is all of this stuff anyway? And so it was in the middle of COVID, so there wasn't a whole lot of access to like community and support and
Sure.
therapy. So I just went on my own journey, doing the best that I could to start to understand and unfold how I got here to this point of so disconnected that I was literally killing my body
Mm.
internally. And then I went and I got my first cognitive therapist, and I sat down about a couple months in, and I said, "Hi, my name's Britley. I have an eating disorder because I have an avoidant dad and I seek validation outside of myself, likely because at a young age he left me and I haven't really found a way to find it since. So I identify with my body and I just
Mm.
started to unravel.
Mm.
And I'll just never forget the look on her face. She's like, "You right? Like, wow, you've done a lot of this awareness
Mm.
stuff." And I really had. I'd really gone so deep into like what causes an eating disorder and how did I get here and what am I chasing after? And the internet provides a lot of information. What it doesn't provide is the integration. What do I do with all this awareness? I don't
Mm.
feel any different. Now I'm just aware of what I'm unaware of or
Mm.
what I was unaware of,
Mm.
right? And so that's the moment that I thought there has to be something more. There has to be something more. And I started to peek into the somatic world, which soma just means of the body. So it's
Mhm.
building this beautiful mind body connection where you actually start to go surpass the analytical mind into the subconscious programming where it's all built, right? Where
Mm.
it's all laid. It's where we operate 95% of our day habits, thoughts, patterns,
Mhm.
beliefs. I start to get curious about that. And then I'm led to breath work. And in a 45-minute breathwork experience, it was like I felt my body for the first time in my entire life.
Mm.
It was like all the power that had been turned against me, reflecting back to me, like came back on the right side. And we were like, we're here. We're on this team
Mm.
together. It's like all the weaponry went down. And instead of fighting this internal mind body battle and like this just frustration from my body and this control, it was like everything subsided. I felt the hand of God. And I was like, everybody needs to know about
Mm.
this. Everybody needs to know about this. Right. And it didn't heal me in an instant, but it was the catalyst and it was like anything I'd ever experienced. And so from there, I took 2 years. I flipped my world upside down.
Mm.
I left the real estate, left the pharmaceutical, left the guy, left the golden retriever puppy. That was the
Wow. That takes
hardest.
some courage.
I bought a Subaru. Everyone thought I was losing my mind, but I knew. I
Yeah.
knew. It was like that inkling inside of me just came to the surface and you couldn't ignore it anymore.
Mm.
So I bought a Subaru, I packed it full, and I headed to Denver, Colorado. I flipped a coin, Denver and Nashville, and went to Denver and showed up with my bags, unpacked them into an Airbnb, not knowing anybody, and that's where I really started my healing journey.
Mm. Thank you for all that context, and I appreciate the vulnerability. So how long were you immersed, or how long did you go through that eating disorder? Was it like a couple of years? Or?
It was such a gradual buildup, right? Like I think at 18 is when I really started to look around and compare my body to other women's bodies.
Yeah.
And that was a really hard time. I was actually dating someone, he was an ex-athlete, played in the minor leagues, and he got injured, got Tommy John surgery. So when he came home, he had his own identity crisis, which kind of poured into my identity crisis. And all of a sudden we were going to become gym partners and like look apart. And I was just kind of molding to whatever it was that he had in his eye. And in doing that, we started taking supplements. We started looking around at our inspo, which really started to catalyze.
You can, if you want to go over there.
So, did I not do?
That's okay. No worries.
Don't they know?
They should know my schedule.
And I'm in that Tony Robbins mastery, so I'm like, that will go off all day.
Yeah.
And so I do think, and there's no blame placing on that. That was entirely me. There's no blame placing. That was entirely me, but it was feeding the fuel nonetheless, right?
Yeah, and it seems like it's a very common thread for many women, just in America specifically, but also just, it's like an instinctual, self-conscious pattern of being hyper aware of your body. I'm still trying to recognize why. Like, does it go back to like, I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones, and there's this new series. And so childbirth back in the day it could be brutal. We obviously didn't have like modern medicine and the technology that we have to, help the mother stay alive if things went, sideways. And I'm curious, I wonder like where that comes from with women. Like, is it because men made judgments of those women based off of like how they were able to birth, or like that's like a deeply survival mechanism? Have you ever like looked into that? Because it seems like it's a common thread between some of the women that I know in my life, but just like through observations that I've made.
I'm a big believer too in like generational trauma getting passed down, right? And so the identities that shapeshift our grandma's reality to their ability to receive and accept and love themselves then correlates and imprints on our mom, which then imprints and correlates on us, which if we're not careful, then imprints and correlates on our daughters. And I'm going to be vulnerable here. I haven't shared this in public. I've shared it a little bit on Instagram, but if that's okay, I'm going to be wide open. I am currently suffering from breast implant illness. I actually have my surgery next week. So this is why this all ties in so perfectly, right? So at that height of just trying so hard to seek validation and wanting to literally morph my body into a body that was not my own to try to then get the validation outside of myself. And I will just say that didn't fix anything. Nothing happened, right? Like I got the breast implants and they were fun, but nothing shifted internally. And I think we do that a lot in our lives with the cars and the money and the job and all these external things that we really try to accumulate. It's like we're trying to build up a pile of stuff to feel different. And then we get the pile of stuff and nothing changes.
Yeah.
I mean, I got the implants and then I had the eating disorder, right? So they actually did the opposite effect. So when we reach outside of ourselves so often, so much, it does create an imprint, and that imprints on others and the people that we raise and are around. And so historically, all of us suffer this. Men and women, whether it's in the body for women or in material things for men, we are all looking outside of ourselves to try to find and fulfill the love from within. We're doing it outside in instead of inside out. And I'm here to like testify that like get in the boobs, get in the car, the 7-figure real estate house dog. It's not going to do it for you if you don't do it for you. Period.
You learned early. I mean, if you learned that at 20, 25, you said, you got the house, you got the dog, you got the money.
Yeah.
That's, not a lot of people are willing to share that. So thank you for sharing that. And I mean, I know plenty of women that have gotten, they try to get plastic surgery or whatever it may be on their bodies to look better, to you know, maybe bring up their own self-esteem. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's not gonna fix anything. And so yeah, that's got to be a challenge that you're facing right now.
Yeah. You know what's cool about it though is like going into this surgery, first and foremost, if you would have told me I had to get this surgery 2 years ago, I have a major breakdown. Probably would say I'm just going to live with the suffering and pain.
Mm,
But fast forward to today, I just found this out at the end of December. So it's been a little over a month.
mm,
I'm great. You know why? Because I know that this has so much more to do than me and my body. I know that for me to walk through this surgery and to learn to love myself on the other side of my most authentic expression goes way beyond my lifetime. It goes to my mom and to my grandma and to
mm,
all the women that grew up showing me Weight Watchers and scales and how to like look for a man and appease a man and all these things in which I love men, by the way. This is not me ragging
mhm.
on men. Um, this has so much less to do with me and so much more to do than the collective that I'm going to impact on the
Mm,
other side of that. And the way that I come home to my body is going to then allow me to show others how to do that. So it's really not about me. Like
yeah.
this surgery is like a glimpse in time,
Yeah, I
and it's
mean,
an honor for me to walk through.
there's probably, I mean, I don't know the stats. I don't have the facts here, but there's probably a
Just
lot of
make them up.
women
Just
that
throw
are,
them out there. They won't know.
yeah. There's probably a lot of women that are going through this. They
Yeah.
got that surgery, and then all of a sudden they have to have additional surgeries to prevent further ailments.
Mhm.
And so, how old were you when you first did your somatic breathwork session?
Okay, so the first breathwork session, then I was 20. I was 25 because
Okay.
2 months later is when I packed up and moved
Okay.
my whole life.
How old are you now?
27.
27. It's 2 years ago.
Wow, it feels like lifetimes. When I
Wow.
say that out loud, I'm like, that seems like lifetimes. Yeah, so 2 years, a year and a half in Denver. I always say I retired because I really didn't work. I just like lived off of my savings and did this
Hmm.
whole internals journey. I went through a 12-month trauma-informed coaching certification
Mm,
program, got certified in breathwork, certified in all these really epic modalities, but then started to really deeply integrate them before I went out to teach them.
mm,
So I got my nervous system really ready and prepared to be able to go out and lead because I didn't want to come from a place of scarcity.
yeah.
I didn't want to sell to pain points. I didn't want to like fall into this market of coaching where it's like you need me. I didn't like that. So
Yeah.
I needed to be fulfilled and then just to be able to hold people in their fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough because if you're a healer, and whether it's somatic breath work or whether it's acupuncture or whether it's, the various different things you can do, um, you don't, yeah, marketing from a place of scarcity is just doesn't resonate with me. And I don't think it resonates with it wouldn't resonate with a lot of other people. So I did my first somatic breath work. A buddy of mine was getting his certification. So it was just a one-on-one session. I was like, I'm honored. I was his first client. And I was like blown away by what has happened every single time I've done it. I've done it 3 times total, and every single time just a huge amount of emotions come out. I'm not sure if that's the case for you every single time. I mean, if you do it over and over and over again, maybe you've already released the emotions that you need to release and you're at a homeostasis status or whatever. But the first time I did it, it was after, what was it? It was last year, I think in like April or May. And I fucking screamed. I cried. I laughed. And here's the thing is like the logical brain, the analytical, like egoic sense of self wants to figure out what the fuck just happened there. Why did I just cry? Why did I just yell? And so I'm still kind of just letting that be and not trying to like analyze it and wonder what it is. But I've only read like 40 pages of, what is that? It's a very common
Body
book.
keeps the
The
score.
Body Keeps the Score. That's what it is. And it seems to me that if you're not fluidly allowing your emotions to express themselves in a manner that is authentic, and feels like pure, it does store within you. And so the 3 times that I've done it, I mean, it's like this is coming from a place of a past experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it seems
Mm-hmm.
to be the case for me. But man, I fucking started like the day after I was like walking downtown. I was at the office. I work for a tech startup. And I was walking downtown. And I texted my buddy that was doing the certification. It's like, dude, I'm literally walking like lighter. I can feel it.
Oh,
I can feel it in my sway. Like,
yeah, my sway.
you know,
my swagger.
And what I'm learning is that, and this is something that I'm still kind of intricately understanding, but a good portion of our ailments come from the mental and emotional body.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are some of the releases that you've had with your experiences?
I'm like, wait, hold on, don't overpass. I want to go into your experience. Like, I'm curious real quick,
Well,
what emotion comes up for you primarily when you do breath work? Or is it different every time?
Well, so the first one, it's crying.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a crier. Like, I think everybody cries. Everybody has to, like, there might be people that cry more than others, but man, I have just trained myself to not cry.
Yeah.
I have trained myself as a man to not cry.
Most of us have. Because what happened when you were crying when you were a little boy?
What happened?
Mm-hmm.
At times, I mean, it was healthy. It was good. I had a great support system, but then when you get into the teenage years, that's when you're like, oh, you're a fucking pussy.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you, dude?
Yeah.
Like you're weak.
Yeah.
What's like, and so men don't want to lose their sense of self-worth and their sense of power and want to be strong. And so, yeah, I've trained myself to not cry. Like even to this day, after doing somatic breath work and doing different stuff and like telling myself, like, honor yourself, let it just be emotionally true in your, just allow it to flow. But that's still a process that I'm trying to figure out right now.
Because the analytical mind, again, the mind can tell the body, hey, go ahead and cry. And the body is like, are you kidding me? Go ahead and cry.
No. We're not
even 30 years of suppressing this. You want me to cry now?
Yeah.
What part? So we actually have to meet those parts. So if you think about it this way, the stronger the emotional reaction we have to any experience in our life, the higher the window of tolerance, the more that our body goes and takes a screenshot and stores it as memory. So you have an emotional experience. Say that for the first 5 years of your life, you can healthily tune into your ability to cry. But then at age 5, you're at Target and you want the toy. And mom's pushing you in the cart and you're like, Mom, I want that Batman. And mom says, no, not today. You said, why? The Batman is right there. I'm right here. You're right there. Just walk over and get the Batman and hand me. I'm confused, right? I don't get it. You don't know what money is and that she's on a budget and that she's there to get toilet paper. You just know that there's something that you want and you want to close the gap in which you get it. And she doesn't give you the context because she doesn't have time and she's not attuned to her system. So she says, not right now. And you're like, but why? And you start to cry and she says, stop it. You're embarrassing me. And in that moment, at 5 years old, you're like, this is my mom. This is the woman who meets my primitive needs. I can't afford a lapse in connection. So if I'm embarrassing her, she could leave me here, right? You don't have the toolbox to know that she's not going to leave you. She loves you. She's not attuned to you, so you can't be attuned to you. So you take all that emotion and you go, and then there's shame and guilt associated with crying because you don't want to embarrass mom. You don't want to lose connection. So then you push it down into your body. And in a moment, your body takes that memory, it stores it as truth, and it says, no crying because you could lose connection. No crying because you'll embarrass somebody else. No crying because you don't want to cause a scene. In that moment, your body, and it's crazy, right? We can have 5 good years of learning to cry, but in a moment, because our body is literally programmed to seek danger and keep us alive and safe, then it's imprinted. And then you stop crying. And then the next time you go to cry, all of a sudden you're like, wait, hold on. I don't want to lose connection. I'm going to try my best not to. I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold it. I'm going to press it. Years, right? So there's a part. The part of you is 5. The pattern is I'm not going to, or the protector, there's a protector that comes online. If I cry, I could lose connection and embarrass somebody else. And then the pattern occurs, right? And then you rinse, repeat. And then at 30, you're like, Shane, go ahead and cry. Your body's like,
yeah.
How? I don't even know how.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that would look like to fully allow myself to express it without that fear that's been imprinted in my subconscious mind that I could lose connection and embarrass somebody else or make somebody else feel uncomfortable. So you literally physically can't do it. And that's why I love cognitive therapy, and it will get you so far. And this awareness is so key. But then what? How do you actually go deep into the subconscious layer and meet that part of you, that 5-year-old part of you that is stuck in time, meet it with love and permission it to cry, and then reparent it in a way that your parent couldn't do
Yeah.
at the time?
Wow. That was very well explained.
You're like, done.
Damn. No, I mean, a part of me intuitively and subconsciously understands that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But that example was like, that hit. I can, and so that might happen your entire life. Like you just like keep going, like you're 30, you're 40, you're 50. And like there's certain circumstances where like someone that you care about might not be in a position in that moment to explain themselves fully and say, just please stop for a second. And then immediately your body is pretty intelligent and just goes, okay, I won't do this.
Yeah.
So it seems like I might be doing breath work until the day I die.
We might be doing breath work. Well, then like, what was the correct thing to do, right? Your mom then would have been like, hey, buddy, I know that you want that and it's right there, but there's an exchange that has to be made in order for us to get that. And I don't have the right resources today to get that. But let's hold on to the vision and like, right, there's so many ways, but parents are just using what they have based on their parents. So that's where it comes full circle, right? To you asking me, where did it start and where does it end? There's this thing that says it ran into the family until it ran into you. And I think that's so true. Like it will run on, and your scarcity and limitations around money and your need for approval and your desire for and longing for things and your ability to push down your emotions will run in the family until it runs into you. And are you willing to face it? And it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's going against the comfort of what you know to be true over and over again. And we find ourselves in these cyclical patterns too, right? This is kind of high level, but again, I'm going to bring it down to make sense. We are addicted to certain emotions in our body, just as the addict is addicted to alcohol and nicotine. So we have 3 brains. We have the logical, emotional, and the intuitive. So if I say right now, Shane, feel love. Hurry, feel love. Go. Go, go, go. Hurry, feel love. Do you feel it? Do you feel it? Yeah. You can't, right? You can't just feel love. What do you have to do? You have to go from the logical brain, feel love, to the emotional brain. And you have to say, hold on one second. Let me extract a memory or someone in which I love so that I could bring that down into the intuitive body and start to then extract and feel. It takes a moment. We have to pull from the emotional brain to feel a feeling, right? That's why I can say, hey, nicotine's bad for you. Nicotine's bad for you and you get it all day long, but there's an emotional pull that releases just like a chemical in the body when you actually hit the nicotine, when you actually drink the alcohol. So even though your analytical mind and your logical mind can be online for something, if it doesn't get through the emotional brain and then into the intuitive brain, it doesn't stick. Does that make sense? So we become addicted to certain emotions because they feed certain chemicals in our body in which we find comfort in. That's why, say it is unworthiness. We're slightly addicted to unworthiness. We will literally create experiences in our environment to feed unworthiness. We'll do this in the sense of like, I'm going to start that New Year's resolution. And then you subconsciously sabotage yourself from doing it to prove that you're unworthy so you can find the dopamine hit in your body that releases that chemical and then it starts all over again. Right? I always use it in this way. I'm like the girl who goes to her ex's Instagram page and she has to open up Instagram, type in the ex's name, go to his followers, go to his likes, go to the girl, go to the thing to create like a whole emotional spill. I'm like, that was like 18 steps. What is your brain doing when you do that? No, don't do that. You know what's going to happen. You're not going to feel good. Stop right there. But what do you do it anyway, right? Yeah. Why? Because the logical mind's on the emotional body wants to, or the emotional brain wants to get fed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when we can start to understand what is it then, what emotions potentially could I be addicted to in a way that feels and brings me comfort that I continue to create outside of my environment to feed and fuel that. And if I could become consciously aware of that, how could I shift it? How could I stop feeding and fueling that emotion and then find a new emotion that I want to feed and fuel? And what would look different in my life if I were to shape shift in that way?
Yeah, I was thinking of an example of my own stories, my own maybe emotional addictions. Yeah, and I'd like to share it because it's something that I'm trying to unpack. And yeah, so I've revealed this plenty of times on the podcast. Mom passed when I was younger. And so she died when I was 3. At the age of 4, my dad's ex-girlfriend was pretty abusive. And so as my family learned that happened, years went by, but there was this like special treatment around me. Like, oh, Shane's mom died and he was also abused like right after she died. So like, what are the potential side effects, the second order effects of a 3-year-old losing the physical presence of his mother? And then after, like directly after it happens, like you've got this woman doing things that are physically harmful, emotionally harmful, mentally, all that stuff. And so over time, I had aunts, like grandmothers, friends, just people that I cared about in my life treating me in a special way because, oh, his mom, and it's like kind of hard not to, like even teachers would try to be helpful on Mother's Day, like if everybody's making a card and there was like literally a 1-hour session on Mother's Day, make your card, so I was just like, what do I do? I'm like 6 or 7, so I started to get what I realized I started to get addicted to the attention that I would receive and the love and the caring that I didn't receive. Like I received it from my mother when she was alive, but when obviously she passed from cancer, and she didn't intentionally abandon me or anything like that. But so the seeking and the desire for care and attention was fulfilled through other females in my life that I love very much, and I'm very grateful for them. But this like special, emphasis on like, oh, he's a special boy because his mom died and this and that. And it was like, oh, maybe I'm getting dopamine from this, and I'm like, oh, it's like keep going, like. And after a while, it's just like, it can unravel as an adult into something like I'm a special person, and like everybody around me is not, or like it could evolve into like narcissism or like, I don't know, like just other shit that doesn't work for you anymore as a 30-year-old man, So, it's something that's come up, recently. I actually just, I immersed into an ayahuasca ceremony twice. So 5 ceremonies total, last year, and I just signed up for another one. And everybody says as soon as you sign up and you commit, the medicine starts working. And man, I mean, I've had some crazy dreams. I've had some crazy things come up that like I thought I dropped as a child. Just certain aspects of my personalities or personality when I was a child, kind of came up. And so, yeah, thanks for bringing up the topic of us being addicted to some of these emotional, because it kind of ties into these chemicals, processes that are going on in your brain. And so, yeah, I want to share that because I think it's something that I want to like release and just like let go. And
so good.
Yeah. And so, so for the other moments that I've had with somatic breath work, some of them I couldn't consciously put a finger on what the emotion was, but I did combo one time, which also like taps into the body. I don't know if you've ever done combo.
I haven't done combo.
It's like a frog medicine.
Poison.
Yeah. People call it poison. People call it medicine.
Pick your word.
Yeah. But that also can bring about, and breathwork and combo can be used together. I mean, like you can do breathwork and then combo right after, and it can release a lot. And so, I did combo before the ayahuasca ceremonies, and I let out like a cry. And what I determined was that it was like a cry of grief. And then I did breathwork the day after, and I was laughing so fucking hard, like the
Mm.
most I've ever laughed. And yeah, I'm wondering for you, whenever you have these emotional releases, or some of your clients that release these emotions, are they able to identify it? Like, is that even
Mhm.
a
Oh, yeah.
thing? Like, because like for me, it's
Mhm.
not like, oh, memory of my mom, cry. Like it was
Yeah.
just like you tap into your body and just fucking it comes out.
Mhm.
So
I'm listening to you talk. First of all, amazing awareness. Thank you for sharing.
mm,
That's a lot. So much awareness
mm,
in and around how you could be the way that you are because of all of these past experiences and imprints that you've had. Think about your relationship to the feminine, right? Like your mom certainly didn't mean to abandon you, but you certainly didn't have the context, so you felt abandoned either way. And then this new female presence enters your life and it's not safe. And then there's all this other safety, but like the one woman that really is supposed to help you make you feel safe is missing, right? There's this missing piece. And of course, it's going to imprint you. Of course. And what I love about what you were saying and how you were processing it is you didn't have a whole lot of self criticism. Because you could have. You could be like, gosh, I hate that I'm this way. And I do a lot of this. Like, there was none of
mm.
that. It was all curiosity. And curiosity is a heart opener. Criticism is a heart closer. Compassion is a heart opener. But it's hard to go from criticism to compassion at times, right? Someone cuts you off in traffic and it's hard to go from being critical of them to compassionate. But if you could just get curious, that's the bridge. And I hear a lot of that, which means you're doing so much of the work. And I would say that you are moving through it. And that's really the only place you can be. And you don't need to expedite anything. And there's really nowhere else you need to be further along, but right where you are right now. So thank you for naming
Thank
that.
you.
And as I'm listening to you and I'm just feeling you, a lot of thoughts come up, but then it wasn't till the end that something landed. And I'm going to be really honest. I love all the tools and the medicines, and I think that there is a time and a space for them, but I don't think anything is more powerful than sitting with God.
Mm,
I have done over 100 breath works. I have done so much somatic therapies. I have done so many things, and we can get kind of addicted to that process
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And outsourcing and trying to find the thing and the ayahuasca, and it's great. I'm not ragging on it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But to sit in the silence and the discomfort and ask your body intuitively to show you and ask the Holy Spirit to lead, there is nothing. There is absolutely nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
Mm.
I was waking up from the moment that I found out about this illness, and every day was different. Sometimes I'd be like, hell yeah, get these out. I can't wait. I'm going to be free and take a deep breath and on the behalf of the collective and da 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 da. And then the other 50% of the time, I was like, fuck this. I hate this. I love my boobs. I don't want to get them out. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Ah, right. I'm 27. I don't like, right? Like,
Yeah.
I would totally be lying if I said that I was just in this state of bliss around it. Like, there is
Mhm.
total fear. Parts are coming up everywhere. And I tried to override him and I tried to fight against him. And then the moment that I sat with him, I had the most profound experience. I sat and I said, who wants to be met? Who's online? Because it's not 27-year-old evolved adult Britley. There's a part that is seriously hurting and seriously scared. And when I started to sit with God and I asked God to show me, He did. He showed me. And I saw fractals of 13-year-old Britley and 17-year-old Britley that were just searching for love and validation so bad. My dad is really in and out of my life. He's an addict and we've had all sorts of in and out. So the male attention has been really unsafe for me and I've sought it for my whole life. And I've gotten a lot of it based off of my looks. So I thought if I could amplify my looks, I would amplify the love around me.
Mm.
And I did, and I searched and I did the breath work and I did all the things, and all the things are amazing and they're all tools, but they're all just tools. They're all just tools.
Mhm.
You are the only one. You are the only entity that can heal you to the degree in which you want to be healed. I swear.
Mhm.
Nothing outside of you. And when you call on the Holy Spirit, when you call on God to start to help you and amplify that, then there is a whole different shift in the experience because you are literally connecting to the source, the creator of the universe
Mm.
that gave you and equipped you already with the tools and insight that you need, the intuitive wisdom to collect you back into your body.
Mhm.
And so I feel like I want to offer that too because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
for it, but I'm like, have you even sat with for a
Oh,
silent
yeah.
amount of time, like the parts of you that just want you to connect to them? They don't need the drugs to get you there. Like they want your full attention. And if you were to give it to them, would it be slightly discomfortable,
Yeah.
uncomfortable? Absolutely. But would it create such a moment of awareness and epiphany and connection to where you might actually start to shift that
Hmm.
reality?
No, thank you for bringing it up. I it's come up a lot. I have a note. That's why I'm looking on my phone
Yeah.
right now, my Notion app. I used to take notes in an actual physical book, but now I'm doing it in Notion.
I like that.
And I'm releasing an episode on Monday, and it's this gentleman by the name of Stephen Young. He's an alchemist, and he's devoting his life to help others that are devoted to Source, devoted to God. And he had some pretty profound lessons, and this has been spoken. This topic of being able to heal, being able to come back to our wholeness through just silence and space is a topic that's come up many times. And yeah, I think here's another opportunity for me to get, vulnerable.
We love it.
Just to give you the timeline, 3-4 years old from that past situation that I just kind of described. And then and there's probably a lot of American children back in the 90s that were, at the end of the day, you can say that they were responsible for their own actions, but at the same time, your brain is so malleable. You're such a blank slate, and you are very vulnerable as a child. And at the age of 5 or 6, it's like, dude, sugar, TV, was the main kind of just dopamine, the bad dopamine, retrieving dopamine, from sugar, from TV, from different things outside of myself. So from a very young age, I was trying to gain some type of comfort, and maybe probably suppressing a lot at a young age like that to not be able to understand certain things that were going on internally. So since that young of an age, I've constantly thought I could take, now that I'm 30, it's I can take this supplement to help with my focus, and I can take plant medicine to be more connected to God. And I will say, ayahuasca truly was a huge, my last guest, Stephen Young, he was saying they're plant partners, they're plant teachers. Previous guests have mentioned these are all tools for you to maybe come back to the realization that we are all whole, and we don't need something outside of ourselves to be whole. And so no, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I think it's a lesson that I'm still constantly learning, going through these cycles. But yeah, I think that's tough. It's just especially in America, we've got this materialism, and even in the spiritual realm, the spiritual industry in Austin, spiritual materialism, and trying to get into. I'm sure you've probably met some people, or been exposed to people that say they're very spiritual, but it's still a part of their ego. It's still a part of their identity. And so I'm curious, did you always have a relationship with God your whole life? Or was that something that established at a later?
I was born in Utah. I was the only Catholic girl in my school.
Okay.
In fact, I remember when I went home and I said, "Grandma, I want to be Norman." She said, "First of all, no, you don't. Second of all, it's Mormon."
I was like, do you want to be a man?
She's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to be Norman." They always tell that story. So, grew up going to Catholic church with grandma, but my mom and dad never led me in church. At about 17, I went back to my high school, would have Sunday services, and I'd go in and out, but I'd mostly go hungover. And,
what age was this?
17. I
Okay.
was a partier.
I
started
when I was 14.
Then at 21, I was over it. I'm like, I'm sober now.
This is boring.
It's over it.
There's some people that get into it, right? Yeah, at the age of 21.
But I always, I dated a guy that didn't go to church with me. I remember waking up at his house and going and coming back. So there was this prompting, there was this longing for sure. But that's what it was a longing, I think. It wasn't quite a relationship yet. And then when I got to Denver, I got into the New Age space pretty severely, was doing the Oracle decks, had the altars and all of the things that I think, again, are like Oracle cards and altars and crystals.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
was very heavy into that space. And then when I was being called back to Austin, which was just in May, so can't do math, but 8 months or so.
Yeah.
I got back to Austin and everyone's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Gosh, I hate to be that girl, but I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. I thought you would have had to kick me out or pull me out of Denver kicking and screaming. And I don't really know why I'm here." Started going to a Red Rocks church and had been praying for a business partner for 248 days. I met Miss Ellie Ty, and she has changed my world. We went into business together. We were friends first. We didn't even consider being business partners until we looked up at each other and realized that what we do has so much to offer the world. God just totally ordained it, and then just really got into my faith and reclaiming what that looked like. And it's crazy. It's like, I think a big reason that I didn't get into faith is because I wanted to live my life my way. I didn't want to give up sex before marriage. I didn't want to give up oracle decks and things. I wanted to do it my way. And that was something that kind of kept me at an arm's length with Jesus and God and in my walk of faith. But then it's so interesting how your heart posture begins to change and how inadvertently, without any effort at all these things that you seek are just become distractions. And then you really find the potency of the power of just like sitting with this God that created you and loves you, and like how healing that is. And, I'd call my friends and I'd be like, hey, how are you? And they're like, oh, I'm just going through a process again. Like, my gosh, I'm just another process. And I started to be like, when does that end? When do we stop processing and start living? Like, we are in an abundant world. And the whole illusion is that we are fragmented, broken beings. And rather than trying to fix ourselves, could we just accept that's exactly who we are? We are totally fragmented, broken beings. But there is a perfect God that loves every part of you. And if you could start to learn and accept that part of you, then you wouldn't be searching so hard for fulfillment. There is this layer of acceptance and willingness to then return to love as many times in a day as it takes, right? And return to love as many times as it takes. And so now it's like one of those things, once you see, you can't unsee. What God has done in my life is so profound. It's insane. I mean, I'm a different human. You could ask anybody as I come back into Austin and I run into old friends, are like, Britley, like, is that you? And it doesn't really feel like me. It feels like a cellular level. I have been changed from the inside out because of the breathwork and the modalities, sure, but also just asking God to come in, make my heart his home and change it and alchemize it. Fear into love, anxiety into abundance, like angst into trust and surrender and softening as many times as it takes. This is a journey that I will be on every single day of my life. And if I can look at that as not a redundant pain in my ass, but like a beautiful, epic love story to the end of time, all of that charge starts to change and you start to feel it. You start to feel it. My relationship with money is completely different. I don't look at money as like this thing that I have to go achieve and this value that I have to have that imprints on me. I'm the value that touches money. $100 bill floating down the street has no value. It can be run over by a truck. It can go into the gutter. A dog can eat it. I go pick it up. Now it's valuable. Money can't duplicate itself. It can't multiply itself. It can't exchange itself. I do that. Therefore, I am the value that money is waiting on. And we have it so backwards. We think that we're valuable the more money we have. And I'm like, no, abundance is like oxygen. It's like Wi-Fi. There's Wi-Fi in this building, right?
I think so.
Everybody can come and get access to that Wi-Fi. The closer you are to the router, the more direct your posture, the better the stream, right? The quicker you get there, the more alignment you feel. But it's for everybody all the time, always. And when you think that that person's lucky and that's why they got it, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not there yet, or I'm not equipped, I don't know enough, that's just the ego and the illusion turned against you. And we sit in it and we believe it. But the truth is the Wi-Fi is everywhere. You can go to a coffee shop and plug into it right now today. It's like this whole world is a radio, right? You can tune into any frequency. Right now, country music's playing, jazz is playing, hip-hop's playing. You and I could turn the tune and listen to whatever we want to listen to. But we're stuck in the static because we don't think we have control over the receiver. And we sit in this confusion and discomfort. And it's like, just get in alignment. You're the receiver. It's always around you. It's always around you. But what frequency are you tuned to? What are you listening to? And if you don't like the station, learn to change it. You have that power. It's not like walking into the room that country music's playing or the one that your parents had on the radio. No, you have the power. But we have got to start believing that. And we've got to start walking as daughters and sons of royalty. Because he wants that for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for people that have doubts about God, organized religion kind of maybe cause some of those doubts.
Totally.
With certain dark aspects of like the church and the priest being, like your savior, and what I'm hearing and what I've been learning is like you can have a direct relationship with God, But what the church kind of did at a certain point, hundreds of years ago, uh, was they kind of became, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm treading wisely here, but they started to get lost into the power that they were getting from it. And I think the ego came into play, and there was maybe an unhealthy relationship to the actual true divine relationship that you can have with God, and the way that they might have distorted it in a way. So I'm curious for people that are like, I don't know how you embody this true essence of your connection with God. I don't know how you do that, because when I go to church, like I read the Bible, or maybe at the end of the day they're intellectualizing it. They're going from that part of the brain, and when you do somatic breath work, or if you use these different teachers like plant medicines, whatever it may be, they can help you maybe embody and come back to this essence of coming back to your heart, opening up your heart. Because I'm still trying to figure that out. It's like, what do you mean open up my heart? Like I'm a pretty nice person. I think I'm like open-hearted.
We're going to do a whole one-on-one session one day. I'm going to give you a free session. We're going to crack
What?
you open. Yeah.
Let's
I
go.
can't wait. This is just my way of looking at it. This is just the way that I've looked at religion. Religion is a bunch of broken systems. Let me elaborate.
Mm-hmm.
What is a religion? A religion is a group of people that have a shared idea, and then all of a sudden, along the way, one person disagrees. And with good intention, they break off from that religion and they go start their own religion with good intention. And then they gather people together that have the same morals and beliefs and follow along until they don't. One person stops, they go out, they break off with good intention, and so it's a bunch of different broken systems, all with the same intention to know a loving God. I am not big on religion. I'm big on relationship. I think that there is a God that loves you so much, and he is like, you sweet girl. Thank you for leaning in. There is no way for us to conceptualize and know what is truth or not until we get there.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we are learning and yearning and curious, he loves it. He loves it. He loves you so much. And it's a practice. At 17, 18, 19, 20, all the way to 23, I couldn't feel the Holy Spirit inside me. I was like, what is that they're talking about? I got chills at church, right? I got chills. I got a good word, right? I got like a good motivational speech, and I went home and felt better. And then I went back into the pattern of whatever it was, disconnected, because church on Sunday is not the medicine. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I started getting out of bed and rolling on my knees and saying, hi, God. There's this movie, Hi, God, It's Me, Margaret, or something. And just, it's like that simple. Hi, God, it's me. Hey, God, it's me. Hey, God, it's me. It's a practice. You start to get out of bed, and now my prayers, the way that they've transcended, right? From like, God, give me financial peace, to like, God, equip me, sharpen me into the woman that you desire me to be. And don't give me a penny that I don't know how to hold. Teach me how to hold and steward your wealth and abundance so that I can impact the lives of others. I don't care. Like it goes from like, give me this to like, sharpen me.
Yeah.
Equip me. Turn me into the woman that you have designed me to be. Ed Milet says, at the end of our life, we are going to be met with our Savior at the gates. He's going to introduce us to somebody. It's going to be the highest, most loving version of you that he intended you to be. And my biggest purpose, I think about this all the time, is to look as closely like her as possible. I don't want to meet a stranger when I get to the end of my life. I don't want to see what I could have been and what I was meant to do, but I got caught up in the scarcity and the ego and the fear and the frustration. I want to be so resembling of her. I want to look as close to her as possible, filled with love, flooding love outside of me. I don't care what it looks like, right? This is such a small amount of time, and really none of this stuff matters. And I know that sounds like, I know it's crazy. It's like, how can you say that? But it doesn't. Like, the only thing that matters is how much do you love yourself, and do you emit love, and do you raise the consciousness of love around you? Because the tide rises, and guess what? Every ship rises with it. The work that we do in and around ourselves inadvertently ripples out to everybody we touch that day. I led breathwork at 9 a.m. today, and everyone's crying, and all these grown men with tattoos and man buns, and I love it. They're crying, and we're getting off, and I turn off the recording, and I say, who wants to share? And these men and these women are like, I feel lightness and love. And I'm like, what are you going to do with that? They're like, I'm going to go out today. I'm going to put my feet in nature. I'm going to go out today. I'm going to this party, and I'm going to just emit it out. And what happens? It happens, right? You can feel when somebody walks into a room and there is a lightness and a love exuding from the inside out of them. That is our work here. That's it.
Mm. Mic drop after
Mic
mic
drop.
drop. Um,
Wish I could drop this mic. I would. It's too nice.
it's not mine either. So, uh, yeah. I've had others that have shared some somatic breathwork sessions, and my buddy Brandon, he was on last year, and he was co-facilitating, and he wasn't really. I think he was like, yeah, co-leading it, and he was helping a gentleman that was just going through the session, and he could see he was holding something, and like Brandon helped him release whatever he needed to release by just kind of placing his hand on his heart and just like scanning his body. And this gentleman during the share was just like, I came here today, and prior to doing this session, I was real close to wanting to kill myself. And he's like, now I can feel my heart. I can feel my heart. And it's like an abundance of love. And he shared some other things that I can't totally recall, but it was like, whoa, like people that are addicts, people that literally on the verge of like wanting to end their life, do these somatic breath works. And they're just like, in just a snap of a finger, they're open to love. They're open to the opposite of what they wanted to do, like, yeah, ending their life. And yeah, I'm immersing into this spiritual practice. I wouldn't say I'm devoted to Christianity or or Buddhism, or I'm still figuring that out, but I believe there's something. And like I said, that these plant partners, these teachers, I mean, I told Alex, I was like, because he was on this retreat with me back in October, and I told him, I was like, I feel like this tool, this technology, this plant has opened up a channel within me to truly embody God, some divine presence.
Chills.
And because it was the morning after our first ceremony, he was like, so how'd it go? And I was just like, I think I met God, and it was powerful. I mean, I can't even begin to describe like what like how it went. But I wanted to share this quote that I found by a healer and a really, really powerful man. Your place in the world beyond the physical is no way determined by what you believe when you incarnate. It is entirely determined by how much and with what level of integrity you promulgate love in and around yourself. Mentally challenged people who wouldn't know a complex belief system from an apple, but who spread simple love as they make their way through a challenged life, will go to a place of much higher vibration, with more honor than all the brilliant philosophers and promulgators of truth rolled into one. The heart speaks much louder than the mind in the spiritual realm. And he's got a lot more to say on that. And
That to me.
I can.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm actually meeting this gentleman when I go to do this ceremony in a couple months. And his perspective of spirituality is very interesting. It's kind of, he calls it grounded spirituality. Because I think there's heady spirituality out there. That's really just like the ego masquerading as spiritual,
I agree.
So I think it's important to really recognize when your ego is turning on and you think, oh, like, yeah, I'm connected to God. It's like, oh, and so how do you, I think that's a good question to ask. Like, how do you discern, did you have, or did you face challenges with getting into this relationship with God in this spiritual relationship, and then sometimes your ego would turn on, and I mean, I think I know the answer. It's just a practice of space and self-awareness. But I'm curious did you face that throughout your journey?
I love that question. And I'm like, gosh, when did it change? Because it has changed so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like my ability to discern now what is my ego and my identity to what God has in store for me is so strong. And I do think we're either in faith or in fear, resistance or receptivity. We can't be in both at the same time. We can fluctuate really quickly between faith and
Mm-hmm.
fear, but we're either in one lens or the other.
Mm.
And so fear looks like confusion, chaos, distraction. It looks like us in a pattern, blocking out love, right? And then God, anything that comes from him, it's not always peaceful. I'm not saying it's peaceful, but it is clear.
Mm.
It is clear. Like the moment that I found out that this was the illness that I had to do, and the next step was to get them out, clarity, right? And then from there, the ego came online and tried to confuse the whole thing because it
Yeah.
wasn't sure. But I really do believe that, first of all, he only needs your heart open the eye of a needle. Like it doesn't need to be that much. You don't have to be this open Christian boot. Like you don't have to be any of that. Just the
Mm-hmm.
eye of a needle he can work with, I swear. And you start to ask. I remember when I started to walk in my faith, I said, God, are you going to ask me to give up breath work? Because I like breath work. Is that like, I had some really Christian friends say, how are you going to lead holotropic breath work and be a Christian at the same time? And I was like, I don't know. I never thought about it. God, what do you think about that? And I kid you not, the next day he said to me, God breathed life into Adam. Breath is literally our life force. It is the bridge between us and him. It is like, I look at it as like, the Holy Spirit allows us to know Jesus and Jesus allows us to know God. And whatever you believe, like there's a light, right, in every religion that we refer to it, whether it's Buddha, whatever it is for you, it's this entity that allows us to then know and connect. And the more that we get to know and connect ourselves, the more we get to know and connect that. And the way that we get to know and connect ourselves, I really do believe, is through the breath. That stillness, silence, slowness that bridges you from that analytical, busy mind and into this beautiful, intuitive body. It's like our mind is like a fishbowl and the fish are the thoughts, right? You add more fish, what happens? It gets freaking messy and the water starts to pour over, right? But if the water is the consciousness, the space between thoughts and where you're like still, and there's so much clarity and space there. So it's like, how do you start to quiet down the thoughts, lessen the fish to where there's more space for everything else to come through? And it's just in the breath, in the body, in those moments of silence. Sometimes I think the most important thing we could do is sit at a blank wall. Stare at a blank wall for an hour. I'm not kidding. Like that is so much medicine. If I were to say, hey, go out and do 30 minutes of breath work, 30 minutes of cold plunge, sit in the sauna, and then come back to me in an hour. Or go stare at that wall for an hour. Which one's harder?
Which one's harder? I mean, for me, I've been meditating. I've been doing the sauna. I've been doing ice plunges. So like for people that haven't done the ice, they might say, oh, the ice is harder.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Staring at the wall might be harder.
Right? It's like if I go give you this whole list of things to do, you're like, okay. And you go and you do it, but to just sit and to be is so uncomfortable for us because we have not trained our bodies to sit still and be in that intuitive place. In fact, we don't know, especially from someone who had an eating disorder, it's really hard to sit with your body when you don't really love your body. Where there's parts of you and shadows of you that you're not really willing to look at. It's really not comfy to sit in the silence of your own thoughts itself when you don't like it there very much. We've got to start to learn to connect to those parts and learn to love them. It's so important.
Yep. Yeah. I started meditating when I was like 24. Used the Headspace app, and it was uncomfortable at first, but I think at the time the amount of pain that I was feeling was like, okay, I gotta do something. It was like it was more than the amount of pain of sitting through parts of myself in silence. It was more than that experience, and so I just started doing it every single day. I made it. I mean, I've got the Headspace app still. I don't really use it anymore. I just kind of use my watch to time and just sit still. But I've got like 30,000 minutes on that thing.
Wow, look at you.
Well, it's been like 6 years.
That's amazing.
I find that I need like a half an hour to I would say an hour to really just sit still and let the mind just do its thing. I think an hour is like the minimum amount that you should, depending on where you are with your mind. I've heard some terms like psychic entropy. So like the laws of, it's the laws of physics. I'm trying to remember the exact laws, but there's entropy and it's essentially a measurement of disorder within the universe. Um, and there's a term for psychic entropy, and like meditation is putting order into that and clarifying and finding stillness. But anyways, yeah. I think it's so important to find that space, to find that stillness. And if you sit for long enough, you'll find a whisper. You'll find you'll find what is true for you. So, so I had a question for you. So because I went back really far into your Instagram.
Uh-oh.
One of your old posts was your grandparents were married at that time for 65 years.
Yeah.
What was the biggest lesson you learned from your
That was my
grandparents?
great grandma.
Okay.
She was tying my grandpa's shoe, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
God, that's my favorite.
It's an old one. It's an old
picture.
post.
That's old. You did go down. Wow. You know what? I just got full body chills. My great grandma is 94 years old. She walks 3 miles a day and drinks a glass of wine a night. She's the
What?
sharpest woman you'll ever talk to.
Oh, shit.
She's the most epic. And you know what she does? No joke. Do you know what she does?
What?
Meditates in prayer with God for 3 hours a day.
Really?
She ties 30% of everything she earns back into something. Every Christmas she like donates a donkey on our behalf or something freaking epic for kids that need it. I mean, she is the most godly, amazing, strong, beautiful woman that I've ever met. And she had 6 kids.
Okay.
Okay, so hold on. Let me try to tell this. Gosh,
Sure.
I wish she was here. She met the love of her life in college, Tio. And he went off. He was kind of a bad boy. He went off to play. Did he go play football at Utah? And she ended up marrying a man in the military that was way more, Catholic, white collar, and her parents approved. They had 6 kids. Tio went on to get married, had 6 kids, and then both spouses died. My grandpa Vincent died from cancer, I believe, and then his wife died from something else. Anyway, come back together at 50 years old with 12 kids, collective.
Whoa.
They loved each other like you have never seen a love in your whole entire life. She walked into the room and he like stopped every time and said, "That's my sweetheart." It was like The Notebook living out in front of you right there. And I just remember being like, I'm ruined. I won't settle for anything less. This is the kind of love that people want but don't have evidence for, and I'm watching it right now. And I say, Grandma, did you ever wish that you met Grandpa Tio sooner? He's passed on since it's been about 3 years. She goes, no. I'm just glad I met him. I'm just glad we came back together. I wouldn't trade any of it. I'm just so glad we came back together. And every time we talk about him, she has a twinkle in her eye and she knows he's watching her and she talks to him daily. And it's just the most epic love story. And I'm like, like to just so unconditionally love and respect one another. And then he had Alzheimer's for the last few years, and that's that picture of her at like 90 years old leaning down on her knees like to tie his shoe and I'm just like watching this whole moment. Like she could have easily asked me, I'm 18, I could have just got down there real quick and bunny eared it, but she wanted to do that and she didn't think twice about it. And I think the reason that she still is here and healthy and vibrant is because she has such a strong relationship to God. And she always kids. She's like, he's not done with me yet. I just want to go with my honey. I don't know what we're doing here anymore. I'm like, Grandma, you are too good. You are too good. You are still here to remind us what love is and how good it gets to be. How good it gets to be. And talk about someone who like has given and then received, but then just gives more. Like I was at Tony Robbins' Wealth Mastery this week, and he said, if you don't give a dime out of $1, you won't give $10,000 out of 100. You just won't. So who are you right now in your circumstances right now? What are you doing with the resources before you raise your hand for more and before you want all these things outside of yourself? What are you doing with the love and the resources and the abundance that he has equipped you with right now? I have so many clients that are like, gosh, if I just had $1 million. I'm like, here, I'll write you a check right now. $1 million. Here you go. What are you going to do with it? She's like, I don't know. Would you tell your mom? No, probably not, because then she'd want it from me. Well, what would you do? Invest it? I don't even know where I would invest it. I don't even know what I would do with it. I'm like, so isn't that interesting? That we want this thing so bad. We want these things so bad. And then when we're met with them, we're not even the container for them yet because we haven't done the work on the back end, right? A tree's roots grow down into the ground as far as the tree goes up tall. A sky rise, you dig it down as deep as it's going to stand tall. If your foundation isn't as big as the amount of abundance that you want to store it with, you're not going to get it. What did lottery winners, like 90% of them go
Yeah.
bankrupt in 3 years? They weren't the container for it. They didn't do the work. They didn't become the capacity for it. They don't tithe, they don't store it, they don't invest, they don't have a relationship to money. But yet we want it all, the thing we want the most, and then it shows up for us and we're not ready for it. We gotta slow down.
Mm.
We gotta start getting in that gratitude for what is right now. There was a moment where I had $75 in my bank account and I was doing this gratitude practice. And I remember waking up and being like, I'm grateful for my health, grateful for my dog, grateful for my friends and family. And then I started to shift it. Like, okay, those are easy. That's every day.
Mhm.
What about I'm grateful for the $75 in my bank account. I'm grateful for the health and whatever and the sickness inside me and whatever it's doing to slow me down enough to remind me not to give it the power, but God the power and whatever it's doing inside of my body. You start to pray for the things that aren't so easy to pray for and you start to find gratitude for them. And
Mm.
that $75 changed really quick because I was grateful for it. I'm like, thank you for the $75. Thank you for the way that it's growing. Thank you for the way that it's coming in. Thank you for the way that you are showing me how to circulate and replicate it in a way that is strategic and in your will, God. Thank you for that I'm tithing it. Thank you for blessing it. Like you start to change your posture towards these things that we think are obstacles and you start to really learn how to become grateful for what you have and then things just start to come in because that's the hands that it wants to fall into, not the greedy,
Mm.
not the selfish.
Hmm. And so in this moment of having $75 in your bank account, or there's maybe other circumstances that people will find themselves in life where they're kind of, I wouldn't say desperate, but it's not, there's survival is at risk, in a
Yeah.
way. Um, and, you're praying to God, and how do you, there might be moments where people might ask, um, now you're just being delusional. Like,
Mhm.
like you should just take action
Right.
and like use your analytical brain to go figure out how to get more money.
Totally.
So, have you found yourself in moments of like, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to formulate this question correct. Like,
I get where you're coming, and it's a good question.
it's discernment of delusion.
Right. It's like, do you just sit there with your arms crossed and legs folded and,
God,
and
come on.
pray? Come on, God. I'm praying to you, right?
$100,000,
That's
please.
not
In
the
the
answer either, right?
bank.
I'm glad you asked that. It's an important question.
Yeah.
The first thing I actually like to do, and I'm going to sidestep and I'll come right back with clients because they live in fear, right? They're in this job that is like literally soul sucking and they've done all the work, but it doesn't matter when your external environment is so out of alignment that you can't actually reap the benefit of the work you're doing because it's mirroring back to you all the places you're out of alignment. There
Mm.
comes a time where you have to move. You have to move. So in this job, I always have them say, like, let's just play out the worst case scenario. And I walk them all the way down to bankruptcy, living in the tent under the I-35 and eating out of a soup can. Like, let's just go there because you're dying to go there. The brain's dying to go there. So let's just go there. You're okay. So you're in the tent drinking out of a soup can with the homeless. Is that
Mm.
even okay? Now we've gone there. Is that even possible? Do you know how many things come before that? You would live with me. You would go Uber. There's a million ways in which you could leverage and monetize and take action to
Mm.
resource yourself.
Mm.
No doubt about it. But now that we've gone there, what do you really want? Well, I really want to do something that fulfills me and I really want to feel like I'm adding purpose to this world. I don't want to go get the job that's going to be fulfilling and create safety in the body, like because there's a consistent income, but still be miserable and unfulfilled. So you start to get curious about what you want. I knew when I had $75 in my account, action had to be taken. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't going to sit crisscross applesauce. I'm like, that's not the move. But in that moment, I turned on the gratitude. I turned on the mind and I started to act and operate from an intuitive space rather than a scarce space. Because when you
Mm.
act from a scarce space, you'll just be in a next level in the same scarce outfit, maybe a little cuter, but it's still scarcity, right? When people stay with their jobs for too long and they won't take the action into the alignment, it's because they are so scared. They're like, I always say it's like Peter inside the boat. He's praying from inside the boat and
Mm.
there's a storm and God says, take my hand and walk with me. And he says, I'm scared. Those waters are treacherous. The wind is blowing. I'm scared. God, in this boat, I am safe. But if you don't step out of the boat, you'll never walk on water.
Mm.
And walking on water is so much better than staying in that rickety old boat that's crashing with the waves. But you have to step out of the boat. So it does take action. It takes action and gratitude. But when you start to build the momentum and you start to create evidence for yourself, because you can build echo chambers for whatever you want to hear. If you want to stay small and scarce and broke, you will say small, scarce, and broken, your ego will continue to do its job and ploy to create that experience for you. But if you want to start stepping out of the boat and walk on water, and you want to step into alignment and find a fulfilling vocation in this world that lights you up and impacts others in a way that is fulfilling, you can certainly create echo chambers for that. So it's like, what do you want to listen to? Are you $75 broke, or are you $75 rich and you're going to take action? That's totally up to you. And either way, you'll find an echo chamber and evidence for whichever direction you choose.
Well said. Well said. So we're about
So much fun.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing everything you've shared. Some of it's definitely not always easy to share these things. And at times I find by discussing with other people in public, some of these clips go on Instagram. I've had people reach out on some of these clips and they're like, dude, this hit me. This hit me home. So like your message and vulnerability and ability to share parts of your life that have caused friction or pain doesn't go unnoticed, and I appreciate it. I think you announced you got a new brand coming out.
Yeah.
Fan the Flame.
Fan the Flame. Yeah.
So is this like an evolution?
So much research. This is awesome.
Is this like an evolution of like what you're doing, or is it just kind of like an aesthetic?
No, it's an evolution for sure. Thank you for asking. So I do a lot of the internal operating systems, right? The subconscious reprogramming, the somatic work that we talked about that takes that awareness and brings it into a deep integration so you can actually meet those parts of you and begin to feel different. I want you to live a life that feels as good as it looks online. That's my goal. When I met Ellie, my business partner, she had come from 10 years of project management, so very external operating systems, right? Time, energy restoration, organization, and optimization. So we came together. She's been coaching now for about 3 years. We came together and we're like, what if we could give a full body transformation? What if the devotion could meet the discipline and then you could actually live out your desire? Kind of going back to what we just talked about, right? With the $75. It's like if you have all devotion and you're all in manifestation and prayer, that's beautiful. But then no action's being taken and you get nowhere. But if you're only in action and you're not receiving, then you're in hypervigilance. How do you marry the two? How do you unify the two? How does that internal healed masculine meet your internal healed feminine into a space where you can actually take the internal system, get into an embodied true state of being, and then let the external systems then reflect what that is and go from scattered in all of these ways of thinking into streamlined in your purpose. So we've come together with our areas of expertise and we do customizable coaching packages where we take a human, take a woman, take a man who is in a heart-centered position and wants to find that purpose and that calling on their heart, but doesn't know A, maybe what it is yet, or B, how to start to execute and live that out. And we really provide a full human approach, like a full total transformation to where we're working with the internal state change, the limitations that are keeping you stuck, the confusion, the clarity, and then we create the streamlined process for you to start to get there and live it out because we don't want to wait. We want to move it quick. So that is Fan into Flame coaching and consulting. And we also have a 4-month program for women to go from scattered to streamlined. And that's been epic because like we talked about at the beginning of this, just getting high caliber people in a room that share some of your pains and struggles, but also want to breathe life into your vision and are climbing this ladder with you. It's like, you can't fail because we won't let you. We go get you, right? We go after the one. And so it's been really beautiful to bring it all together full circle and just watch how when I was working with clients and she was working with clients, we've essentially elapsed time because we're working on both the internal and external simultaneously.
Okay. And to bounce off of this bit, like this new business evolutional step and the business partner that you're working with, you were reading a book way back in the day called Give and Take by Adam Grant. And I don't know if you remember this.
I don't know that I do.
It was in Hawaii.
Oh, Let Go.
Was it Let Go?
It was Let Go in Hawaii.
Okay. Maybe that was, okay. So this one's Give and Take.
Oh, okay.
And there was like an insight to the balance of working with others in the business world. Do you recall that?
Why don't I recall that?
It was an old post.
Was it
Yeah,
old?
it was close to like the grandparent.
Give and take. I think I do remember that. But okay, so what was the quote?
So I don't have a quote
Oh, okay.
here, but
We can touch on
receiving the insight to the balance of working with others,
Mm,
I think that's like a huge part of. I was reading or not reading. I was listening to a podcast. It's Modern Wisdom by Chris Williamson. He's gaining a lot of momentum in the podcasting space, and he was speaking with someone that's also a content creator. And he was talking about therapy and different coaches, and he was like the most common. I think he said something along the lines of like the most common coach is a relationship coach, and I mean it could be intimacy, like romance, but it could also be business. It can be friendship and all that stuff. So I'm curious as you enter into the business world. I don't know if you remember that book, but like how you're navigating those relationships, because I think that's
mm,
it's like you both have these values. Like probably my guess is like your foundational values are very similar,
totally. Yeah.
but yeah, curious how you
Mm.
navigate those seas.
We're so unique because we really are the yin and the yang. I am, pretty much in my feminine 99% of the time. My ability to manifest things and flow and move quickly, I can jump off of a mountain and build on the way down. That doesn't scare me.
Mm,
She's way more methodical. She has a very healed
mm,
masculine. So her tendency was to wait until the ducks aligned before acting. Mine was to jump before I was ready.
mhm.
So you can imagine the dynamic that we had to
Yeah.
create and cultivate before we went into business together. We had to really build on like, how do we balance each other? How do you ground me down in a way that I am actually sustaining
Mm,
and I am with the clients that I am with and that I could actually rinse and repeat and not have like a 15K month and then a 5K month and then a 50K month and then a 2K month? How could we create some consistency and sustainability, the discipline, right?
mm.
Met with my ability to say, hey, there's some action that's going to bring more clarity than thinking ever will. Could you trust me and jump? And she does. She trusts me. She's like, I
That's
entrust
awesome.
every intuitive hit that you have. And do you trust me to line it up in a way that makes sense for us? And so it's like really, really uniting. And I love talking about polarity because inside every human is a masculine and a feminine energy and a dynamic that if we can bring together, you do learn how to do and be simultaneously,
Mm,
how to act from an internal space of wisdom and operate from a higher level of consciousness than just doing for the sake of doing, because more for the sake of more is cancer, right? If
mhm.
we are doing it without any pure intention. And so being able to marry these two identities of like, yeah, you get to flow. And when you step into alignment, that whole thing that we hear on the internet that drives us crazy if we haven't found it yet of like, just be in the energy, just be in the energy is so true because you're literally a frequency match. You're an energetic match. You're tuning to the country music.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden, that's all you see, and things start to ripple away. You have to be willing to let go and maybe lose friends and redirect your life a little bit. But you get there and then you feel that. But then how do you sustain it, right? This is a total teaser. We're going to start a mastermind called To Have and To Hold because it's like you can have it all. Who cares if you can't hold it all? If you
Mm.
can't hold it all. And if you can't actually feel the liberation when you manifest it into, because how many of us manifest things? And if I told you, Shane, 2 years ago, this is where your life's going to be, you'd be like, sweet, I have it all. I have a podcast studio. Are you fucking kidding me? And now you're here and you're like, what's next? Right? And so it's like one thing to manifest it all and to get yourself and to work up the chain of whatever goals that you have, but it's totally different experience to feel the gratitude and the celebration and the liberation in a moment to moment basis. It's totally different texture.
Mm.
And so can you act and operate and act but out of a place of integrity, embodiment, and intuition? Does that answer your question?
Mhm. Yeah.
Sure.
It
Yeah.
does. Um, so I'm gonna jump to a different topic.
Yeah.
We got a little bit more time.
Yeah,
I wanna be
absolutely.
mindful of your time. You had a cool quote that I enjoyed. It runs in the family until it runs into you. Emotional energy has got to go somewhere, if not processed and expressed in one lifetime. It will jump to the next, and self-loathing is a powerful emotion. Turned inward, it becomes our biggest emotional chain. Addiction, obsession, compulsion, depression, illness. Directed outward, it becomes our collective emotional chain. Crime, oppression, adultery. And there was more to that post. Um, the first sentence was what attracted me to the post. It runs in the family until it runs into you. I think a lot of people identify with it's in my genes. So it's just how it is. And, um, some people really have this like huge attachment towards certain identities, whether it be certain things that that they grew up with. And so, yeah, that was a really powerful quote. And, you know, especially with COVID and certain things that have occurred over the course of the past few years, like we've seen some like certain aspects of society. I mean, things are also, I mean, it's like kind of how you look at it, like your perspective of, back in the day we had doctors smoking cigarettes in the office and prescribing cigarettes. And like now it's like, there's more understandings of how to be healthier physiologically. But then at the same time, you can see things on the news and like certain aspects of society might be degrading, but it's all, I guess, subjective. But I guess where I'm going with this is, the internal aspect of not releasing this emotion, addiction, and then the potential outside external effects of crime. It just goes to show how important being emotionally intelligent is for society as a collective. Like what are some of the, because I'm sure you've had clients that, they have these attachments of their identity coming from maybe family patterns and and they're so attached to that.
Yeah.
I know the breath work probably helps with maybe kind of pushing through that inertia.
Absolutely.
Are there any examples that come to mind that you don't have to mention the client's name or anything, but like some profound or like pretty big releases of that attached identity and being able to use somatic breathwork or just your coaching practice and providing like an example?
Totally. This is a helpful context. This is something that I teach inside of our program. I believe that I have an acronym for CHAINS. There's 3 A's. So it's childhood trauma, habits, addictions, attachment, ancestral trauma, illusions, negative thoughts, and societal conditioning. Spells
Okay.
out CHAINS.
Got it.
It's a lot, right? But
Yeah.
the point being, there is a lot of different ways in which we can tie to illusions and identities that no longer serve us.
Mm.
And remember when I said the part at Target and the protector came online to keep you from being disconnected?
Mm-hmm.
We have to know it's really important that we remember that all of these chains protected us at some point in our life and or the person that handed it down to us.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't come at it with criticism and we can't come at it with this I need to fix you mentality. We have to lead with curiosity, right? But when we can start to identify and discern that a lot of what we're holding, a lot of the imprints on our subconscious mind, again, formed from the ages of 0 to 8 years old, where we are so malleable, as you mentioned, and we're taking in other people's projections and truths and storing them as our own and then living out accordingly. We have to understand that not a lot of this is ours.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't our responsibility to have the tools to attune and discern then. And now we just get to work through it, right? So running into the family until it runs into you means, yeah, it is passed to you. Yeah, the cards could be unfair if you want to look at them that way, but they're your cards.
Mm.
They're your cards. So you can meet them with resistance or acceptance. Either way, it's up to you.
Mm.
When you meet it with acceptance, you start to become curious about where the imprint occurred or where it occurred or where maybe your mom and dad and what their childhood looked like, right? Like an example, my grandma's dad, Grandpa Vincent, passed away at a young age. My mom's dad was an alcoholic he was a musician. So in and out of her life, very inconsistent, would come to pick her up, but be 2 hours late or not come at all. My dad, very much the same. Toxic pattern, addict, wouldn't come, show up, be embarrassment, right? So all of a sudden, what's happening? There's a pattern that's repeating not only in my life, but it repeated in my mom's and my grandma's, right? So all of a sudden we start to acknowledge that there's this pattern. So what's it going to take then for me to get in? I'll use a personal experience. So who did I attract for the first few years of my life? Slightly unavailable men who were a little bit of an addictive personality, right? That would show up inconsistently because that's what my perception of love was. That was a male model in my life. So I had to break that. I had to decide that I was going to go against a toxic, passionate, quote unquote, infused relationship and start to reclaim what love meant to me, love myself in that way, and then attract in somebody who could then meet me at a higher level of consciousness because I didn't want that. I didn't want the in and out relationship, the 5 marriages, all of the things that had been imprinted on my life, right? And my biological dad is still single and probably always will be. So I had to decide that I was going to do the internal work and recreate a story and narrative of love for myself and attract that in regardless of what the story had said, regardless of what his history had proven to me. And same with scarcity, right? Like when we stop resisting scarcity, we stop resisting money. It's like, don't resist the scarcity. Just be with the scarcity and learn to accept the part of you that is scarce, and then transcend in and through the scarcity, because scarcity is wisdom. A lot of people are like, I'm scared to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, well, especially females. Has anyone in your life ever been an entrepreneur female? Well, no. Well, of course you're scared.
Mm-hmm.
Your system has no evidence for it. You've never done it before.
Mm.
But are you going to let that fear derail you? Or are you going to let that fear be a part of the story, sit in the backseat? And are you going to trek forward in faith? Because you have the option. And that's when you really start to see these chains start to break away. And I'll tell you something, my mom has never gotten behind. It took her a long time to get behind what I did. She's like, I get real estate. I get pharmaceutical sales. I don't get breath work. You teach people to breathe and they pay you money. She couldn't get it. She couldn't comprehend it, right? And there was a lot of resistance. And there was about a year where we had a really hard relationship, because she was mirroring to me all the things that I was internally healing.
Mm.
The other day she called me, I kid you not, I was in the Lifetime parking lot, and she's like, you'd be so proud. I'm like, what happened? She goes, I told Dad the other day I was looking up directions. She's now married to my stepfather.
Mhm.
It's my dad, and I love him.
Mhm.
She said, I told Dad I was looking up directions and Siri was reloading and I couldn't get him quick enough, and he was starting to get angry and frustrated with me. And I told him he was hurting my inner child. I said, Mom, you just said the word inner child. I said, what do you mean? She's like, well, when I was little, I remember my friend's mom driving me home and I couldn't remember where it lived, and she got frustrated with me. And when he was getting frustrated with me, that memory came up because I couldn't get the directions fast enough, and it wasn't my fault. I said, oh my God, this is amazing. I've never told her that, right? But because I'm doing this work and she's leaned in and she's starting to feel the liberation in my body, I swear it's inadvertently affecting her. How cool.
Yeah.
I go, how did Dad respond? She goes, he said he was so sorry and he slowed down, and we had a great repair there.
Mm.
And so it's like, you break chains because you are doing the work. We want to shake the people we love, like, wake up. And we can't do that, right? It's non-linear. Healing goes in all sorts of ways, but when you can start to really believe that you have the power to break the chains, call upon God, call upon the Holy Spirit, shine light on the things that are out of alignment, and be willing to sit in the discomfort of whatever it takes for you to actually transcend through, you're going to experience so much freedom, and so will everybody around you.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I think I've witnessed that in my own life.
Yeah.
I've witnessed, doing the work, but then trying to, tell your parents or tell your friends or tell certain people like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you know what? Just lead by
Yeah.
example.
It
So,
can feel lonely too, right? As you're starting to do the work and raising
yeah.
consciousness.
Yeah. I mean, some friendships that you had might not be as, the connective tissue might not be as strong anymore because you're changing, you're
Mhm.
growing, and your values and maybe certain ways of being have just evolved. And maybe that friend that you had was there because, I mean, you might have formulated, like, for instance, if you're drinking all the time and all your friends are drinking with you, and then you kind of step out and you stop drinking, and then you realize like, oh, our connection really wasn't that strong. Like, we really just kind of flow together because of just the substance of alcohol. And there's like other aspects of it too, but yeah, it can get lonely. I could totally see it getting lonely. But I want to be mindful of your time.
Yeah.
If you have any, so I'll link all of your like social media in the show notes. If you have a website as well, but if there's anything that's on your heart that you want to share to the world, share to anybody that's listening,
Mm.
feel free to do so.
Right away, as we're talking, I just want to say, I think it's the leading indicator, not even the lagging indicator, but the leading indicator that if you are outgrowing relationships that no longer serve you, you're on the right track. And I want everyone that is listening to this who feels like, dang, Shane's got it together, or Britley's, whatever it
Mm.
is, you're exactly where you need to be. You are so perfectly positioned with the context that God is giving you to transcend through, to utilize, to equip you, to sharpen you. There are so many things that I didn't understand that I had to walk through until I walked through them. This surgery being one, right? There's only so much healing I can do up until the surgery, until it's going to take the surgery and me coming out and waking up on the other side with my authentic body to be able to really radiate and heal from there. I can't do it from beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever you are, could you just be there?
Mm-hmm.
Could you just soften into it? Could you just look up and see, what are you grateful for? What is this lesson teaching you? And if you don't want to rinse and repeat, you don't have to, but you have to be willing to extract and look at the lesson. You have to be willing to transcend through it. You can't get out of it. The only way out is through. Trust where you are right now. Breathe into it. It's not so bad. If you threw your pile or your problems in a bucket, you'd pull them right back out with
Mhm.
everybody else's.
Mm.
Just be there. Close your eyes. Like, take a breath. Put a hand on the heart. Like, you're okay.
Mm.
You're safe. You've got this. You've made it this far. You don't have to do and work so hard. You really don't. Just be. Just allow the love inside you to begin to radiate outside of you. Just share a smile. Just give a hug. Just ask for support. Just let yourself cry. Just be a human. Just like let that be enough for a moment. And if you need reminding, you can find me on Instagram and I'll remind you at Britley Ann, BritleyAnn. And yeah, you give them the website and all those things. But
Mm.
I do believe it's my purpose to empower people to such a degree that they just stop looking outside of themselves to find fulfillment and they can start to radiate from within. I want people living on purpose. I think this life is way too short to live outside of alignment and to settle for the mediocre relationship and job and life and all the things. And I promise I have the clients that have the car and the millions, and they're not there either. So start on you, inside out.
Mm.
God, enter my heart and make it your home. Change me, change my
Yeah.
perspective.
And if you think I have it figured out, there's
I just said that to be polite.
yeah, I definitely don't. So, well, thank you, Britley. I appreciate it. And that was a
Thank you.
beautiful concluding message. Hit my heart because that's something that I'm kind of, going through with this podcast and trying to like go to like keep this going. And you kind of lose track of like why you started,
Yeah.
So appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Of course.
Peace.
Peace.